He takes 3 steps away, and that's when the sound breaks him. Not a bark, not a growl, something softer, something almost human. Before we go any further, tell me this. Have you ever walked away from something and felt it follow you anyway? The wind carries the scent of rain across the training field, sharp and metallic, the kind that settles into your lungs and stays there. It's just past 0600 at Camp Ridgeline, somewhere in the dry stretch of southern Arizona where the earth cracks under heat by noon and freezes your breath before sunrise. The sky is still a pale gray, like it hasn't decided whether the day is worth beginning. Sergeant Lucas Grant doesn't believe in hesitation. He's a man built from decisions. Quick, precise, final. 6 feet tall, broad shoulders wrapped in a standard-issue field jacket, sleeves pushed just high enough to reveal the edge of ink on his right forearm. A German shepherd, etched in black and shadow, frozen mid-stride. A memory he doesn't talk about. Not anymore. Walk away, Sergeant. The voice comes from behind him, firm, practiced. Not cruel, just empty of weight. Like the order has been given too many times to mean anything now. Lucas doesn't answer. He doesn't turn. In front of him, maybe 15 yards out, half hidden in the low brush and rusted wire fencing, lies the dog. Dark-coated. Lean. Still. At first glance, it looks like just another stray that wandered too close to the perimeter and paid the price for it. That's what they all think. That's what they're supposed to think. The wind shifts again, carrying a different scent this time. Damp fur, dust, something faintly copper-like, but not strong enough to alarm. Just enough to tell a different story if you're willing to listen. Lucas's jaw tightens. You heard the order. Another Marine mutters, boots crunching gravel somewhere off to his left. We don't bring them in. Not anymore. Not anymore. The words hang there longer than they should. Because once they did. Once, dogs weren't disposable. Once, they had names. Lucas takes a breath. Slow. Controlled. The kind you learn when panic used to be your default setting. His eyes stay fixed on the shape in the brush. No movement. No sound. Just the faint rise and fall that might be breathing. Or might be the wind playing tricks on tired eyes. He shifts his weight. 1 step back. Then another. The gravel beneath his boots answers with a dull crunch that feels louder than it should in the quiet morning air. This is the part where he leaves. Where he does what he's told. Where he proves he's still the kind of Marine who follows orders without hesitation. He's done it before. He'll do it again. That's what discipline looks like. That's what survival looks like. 3 steps. That's all it takes. 1, 2. And then it happens. The sound. It slips through the silence like something not meant to be heard. Not loud. Not desperate. Just there. A low, fragile exhale that trembles at the edges, as if it's not even meant to call for help. More like a question. Or maybe a memory of one. Lucas stops mid-step. His body reacts before his mind catches up. Shoulders tense. Breath caught halfway in his chest. He closes his eyes for half a second, just long enough for something old to surface. A different place. A different morning. Sand instead of gravel. Smoke instead of rain. And a dog. Another German shepherd, standing between him and something he never saw coming. He opens his eyes again. The field is back. The cold. The gray sky. The weight of eyes on his back, waiting to see what he'll do. Sergeant. The voice presses again, quieter now, edged with something that sounds almost like warning. It's not your problem. Not your problem. Lucas lets the words settle. He's heard them before. Different voices. Same meaning. He looks down at his right arm, just for a second. The tattoo catches the dim morning light, the ink darker against his skin, the lines worn but still sharp. A dog that never walked away. His hand flexes once, fingers curling slightly, as if remembering the feel of fur, the steady presence of something that never needed words to be understood. Another breath. The wind dies for a moment, and the world goes still. No movement from the brush. No sound from the dog. Just silence stretching thin, waiting to break. Lucas takes the 3rd step, and that's when the sound comes again. Softer this time. Barely there. But enough. Enough to reach something he thought he buried a long time ago. He doesn't turn right away. Doesn't rush. Just stands there, caught between the man he's supposed to be and the one he remembers being. Behind him, boots shift. Radios crackle faintly. The world keeps moving like nothing important is happening. But in that small, quiet space between one breath and the next, everything changes. Because sometimes, it's not the orders that define you. It's the moment you decide whether to follow them or not. The silence does not last. It never does. A gust of wind rolls across the field, bending the dry grass low and rattling the loose strands of wire along the fence, a thin metallic hum that lingers in the air like something unfinished. Lucas exhales slowly, the breath leaving his chest heavier than it should, as if the air itself has weight this morning. Behind him, someone shifts again, impatience creeping into the rhythm of boots on gravel. Sergeant Grant. The voice calls, firmer now, less patient. That is an order. Lucas hears it. Of course he does. Orders have a way of carving themselves into a man over time, settling into muscle memory, into instinct. You do not question. You do not hesitate. You move. But his feet do not move. Not forward. Not away. They stay planted, anchored to a moment that refuses to pass. The brush ahead stirs faintly, not from the wind this time, but from something smaller, weaker. The dog is still there, still breathing. Barely. The shape becomes clearer the longer he looks. The outline of a German shepherd pressed low against the earth, coat darkened by dust and morning damp, ribs faintly visible beneath fur that has not known care in a long time. There is a collar once, maybe. The faint impression of one, a lighter band of fur around the neck, where something used to sit. Not anymore. Nothing about this animal looks owned. Or wanted. Lucas takes a single step forward before he realizes it. The gravel crunches again, louder this time in the quiet, and that draws a reaction behind him. Grant. Now there is an edge. Not anger. Not yet. Just the beginning of it. He ignores it. The distance closes slowly. 15 yards becomes 10. 10 becomes 5. Each step measured, deliberate, like approaching something fragile that might vanish if you move too quickly. The air changes as he nears, the scent stronger now, not sharp, not overwhelming, just present. Earth, rain, life holding on in the smallest way it can. The dog does not lift its head, does not bark, does not show teeth. It does not do anything that a threat would do. It just lies there, eyes half open, watching him with a stillness that feels too aware for something so close to giving up. Lucas stops a few feet away, close enough to see the eyes clearly now. Amber. Not dull. Not empty. Just tired. And something else beneath that tiredness. Recognition. Not of him. Not exactly. But of what he represents. A chance. Or maybe the memory of one. He crouches slowly, lowering himself to the ground, boots settling into the dirt with a soft shift. His knees protest slightly, old wear from years of service, but he ignores that too. Everything outside this moment fades, the voices, the orders, the expectation pressing against his back like a weight he has carried for too long. Hey, he says quietly, the word barely more than breath. It is not a command, not a call, just a presence. The dog's ear flicks. Just once. A small movement, but enough to confirm what his eyes already told him. Alive. Still here. Lucas glances at the neck again, at that faint line where a collar used to be. You had someone, he murmurs, more to himself than to the animal. The wind picks up again, brushing against his jacket, tugging lightly at the fabric as if trying to pull him back, to remind him where he is supposed to be. Behind him, footsteps approach, slower now, cautious. Do not touch it, the voice says, closer than before. We do not know where it has been. Lucas does not turn. His hand lifts slightly, hovering in the space between them, not yet making contact. He pauses there, just for a second, giving the dog time, giving himself time. The animal's eyes track the movement. No flinch, no retreat, just that same quiet watching, as if it understands more than it should. His fingers finally lower, brushing lightly, against the fur at the side of the neck. Warm, faint, but there. The kind of warmth that says not gone. Not yet. The dog exhales, a soft, uneven breath that trembles at the edges, and something in Lucas's chest tightens in response. A reaction he does not bother to hide from himself anymore. Sergeant, that is enough. The voice is right behind him now, close enough that he can feel the presence without turning. Stand up. Walk away. The words land heavier this time. Not because they are louder, but because they are closer to something real. Consequence. Lucas keeps his hand where it is, fingers resting gently against the dog's fur, feeling the faint rise and fall beneath. He looks down at his arm again, at the ink that has faded slightly over the years, but never lost its meaning. A dog frozen in motion. A promise that was never spoken out loud. His thumb shifts slightly, tracing along the edge of the animal's neck, careful, deliberate. "You are still here," he says softly, the words meant for the dog, but echoing somewhere deeper. The animal's eyes blink slowly, once, twice, and for a moment, the world narrows to just that small exchange. No orders, no rank, no expectation. Just two lives crossing at the exact point where one could still choose to matter. Lucas inhales, deeper this time, steadying something inside himself that has been unsettled since that first sound broke the silence. He knows what comes next. He knows what this choice costs. He has already counted it. And still, his hand does not move away. The pressure behind him shifts from patience to presence, a weight that does not need to raise its voice to be understood. Lucas can feel it in the air, in the way the morning seems to hold its breath just a little longer, waiting for something to give. Sergeant Grant, the man behind him, says, quieter now, controlled, the kind of tone that carries authority without needing volume. That animal is not part of this unit. Lucas keeps his gaze where it is, on the slow rhythm beneath his hand, the faint rise and fall that proves the dog is still holding on. The fur is rough under his fingers, tangled in places, worn thin in others, but alive. That is what matters. Alive. He shifts slightly, lowering himself a fraction more, bringing his face closer to the dog's level. The world narrows again, just the two of them in a space that feels removed from rank and protocol and everything that usually defines a man like him. "You hear that?" he murmurs, voice low, steady. "They say you do not belong here." The dog's eyes move, slow but deliberate, tracking his face as if the sound of his voice is something worth holding on to. There is no fear in them, no panic, just that same quiet awareness, as if it has already accepted whatever comes next and is simply waiting to see if this moment will be different. Lucas swallows once, the motion subtle but real, something shifting inside him that he has not allowed himself to feel in a long time. Behind him, boots step closer, stopping just out of reach. "Grant," the voice says again, and this time there is no edge, just certainty. "Stand up." Lucas does not respond right away. Instead, he studies the dog more carefully now, noticing the details that were not clear from a distance. The way the ears, though lowered, still hold structure. The way the body, even in its weakened state, carries a kind of discipline in how it lies, as if it was trained once to hold position, to stay, to wait for command. This is not just a stray. Not really. You were trained, Lucas says softly, almost to himself. You know how to wait. The dog blinks again, slow, deliberate, and there is something in that movement that feels like an answer. Not spoken, not explained, just understood. The wind dies down for a moment, and the field grows still again, the kind of stillness that feels almost sacred, like the world has stepped back to let something quieter take place. Lucas shifts his weight, one knee pressing deeper into the dirt, grounding himself in a decision he has not fully spoken yet, but has already begun to make. His hand moves slightly along the dog's neck, careful, measured, feeling for anything that might tell him more. A faint ridge of skin, a healed line, old, not recent, a history carried without words. "Sergeant," the man behind him says, closer now, the sound of his voice just over Lucas's shoulder. "This is your final instruction." Lucas exhales slowly, the breath steady, controlled, the way it always is when something matters more than it should. He closes his eyes for a brief moment, just long enough for another memory to surface, not forced, not resisted. A different dog, a different field, a command given, a moment where he chose to trust something that could not speak, and it saved more than just a mission. It saved him. His eyes open again, and the present settles back into place. The gray sky, the cold air, the weight of expectation behind him, and the dog in front of him, still watching, still waiting, as if time has narrowed down to this one fragile line between leaving and staying. Lucas's hand lifts from the fur for just a second, hovering again in that small space between them. The dog does not move away, does not close its eyes. It just stays, holding that quiet connection like it understands the risk of breaking it. "You are not just passing through," Lucas says, the words barely above a whisper. "Are you?" The dog exhales again, a soft, uneven breath that carries just enough sound to be heard, just enough presence to matter. Lucas nods once, a small movement, more to himself than to anything else. Decision. It settles in his chest, not loud, not dramatic, just firm. Like something returning to where it always belonged. Behind him, the man shifts again, a subtle movement that signals the end of patience. Grant, he says, and this time there is no room left in the word. Lucas finally turns his head slightly, just enough to acknowledge the presence without fully facing it. His expression is calm, not defiant, not uncertain, just clear. Requesting permission to assist, he says, voice even, controlled, the way it has always been when he speaks up the chain. There is a pause. Short, heavy, the kind that says the answer is already known before it is given. Denied, comes the reply, immediate, final. The word lands between them, solid and unyielding. Lucas nods once. He expected that. Of course he did. His gaze returns to the dog, to the quiet life still holding on beneath worn fur and tired eyes. For a moment, nothing moves. No wind. No voices. Just that fragile line again, stretching thin. Then Lucas shifts forward. Not away. Closer. His hands move with purpose now, one sliding beneath the dog's chest, the other reaching carefully along its side, testing weight, testing balance, as if preparing for something that cannot be undone once it begins. The dog does not resist, does not tense. It simply allows it, as if it has already made its own decision. Lucas draws in a breath, deeper this time, steadying himself not against fear, but against consequence. His right forearm tightens slightly, the ink there pulling with the motion, the image of the shepherd seeming almost alive in the dim light. He glances at it for just a fraction of a second, then back to the living animal in front of him. Not this time, he says quietly. And with that, he stops waiting. The moment he commits, the world shifts around him, subtle but undeniable, like the air itself recognizes the line he just crossed. Lucas moves carefully, sliding one arm beneath the dog's chest, the other supporting its side, his hands steady despite the weight of what this means. The body is lighter than it should be, fragile in a way that does not match the strength still present in its frame. Years of discipline do not disappear that easily. The dog exhales again as it is lifted, a soft sound that brushes against Lucas's collar like a quiet acknowledgement rather than a protest. Its head tilts slightly, resting against his forearm, and for a second, the contact feels familiar in a way that is difficult to explain, like something remembered rather than discovered. Behind him, the reaction is immediate, though restrained. Boots shift faster now, gravel crunching with purpose. Grant. The voice cuts in, sharper this time, no longer patient, no longer measured. Put it down. Lucas rises to his feet slowly, adjusting his grip, making sure the animal is supported, secure, not jolted by sudden movement. He does not rush. He does not argue. He simply stands, the dog held close against his chest, its breathing shallow but steady enough to count. One breath, then another. That is all he needs right now. That is a direct order, the man says. Stepping into Lucas's peripheral vision, close enough now that Lucas can see the edge of his uniform, the clean lines, the unyielding posture of someone who believes in the system more than the moment. Lucas turns his head slightly, just enough to meet the man's eyes. There is no anger there, no challenge, just clarity. Understood, he replies, voice calm, even. And then he shifts his stance, turning away instead of complying. It is a small movement, barely noticeable to anyone not watching closely. But it is enough. Enough to say everything without saying it at all. The field stretches out ahead of him, the base structures just visible in the distance. Low buildings catching the first hints of morning light as the sun finally begins to push through the gray. It is not far, maybe 100 yards. Far enough to matter. Close enough to reach if he does not hesitate. The dog remains still in his arms, not resisting, not reacting beyond the faint movement of breath against his sleeve. Its eyes are open, watching the space ahead as if it understands the direction, the purpose, the fragile hope tied to each step Lucas is about to take. Grant, stop. The voice calls again, louder now, the control slipping just enough to reveal the strain beneath it. Lucas does not stop. He takes one step forward, then another, each footfall deliberate, measured, the rhythm steady like a march that does not need cadence to stay true. The gravel gives way to packed dirt, softer under his boots, the sound of his movement quieter now, more contained. Behind him, the distance grows, though the presence does not fade. It follows, pressing against his back, a reminder of everything he is choosing to carry with him beyond just the weight in his arms. A radio crackles somewhere in the background, voices low, urgent, words he does not fully catch and does not need to. He knows how this looks. He knows what it means on paper. Disregarding a direct order. Acting outside protocol. Bringing in something that has already been written off. The consequences line up neatly in his mind, one after another, as clear as any mission briefing he has ever followed. And still, his pace does not change. The wind picks up again, lighter now, warmer as the sun begins to climb, brushing against his face, carrying the faint scent of dust and distant heat. The kind of morning that will turn harsh by noon, unforgiving in its own quiet way. Lucas adjusts his grip slightly, careful not to disturb the dog, his right arm tightening just enough to keep it secure. The tattoo on his forearm stretches with the motion, the image of the shepherd catching the light, the lines sharp against his skin. For a moment, the past and present overlap in a way that feels almost intentional. The dog in his arms shifts its head a fraction, pressing closer, the contact light but certain, as if it has found something worth holding on to. Lucas glances down briefly, meeting those amber eyes again. There is no confusion there, no fear, just a steady awareness, like the animal has already accepted this path and is simply following it through. Easy, Lucas murmurs, the word quiet, grounded. Not a command, a promise. The buildings ahead grow clearer now, the outline of the medical unit coming into focus, a low structure with clean lines and a single door facing the field. It is not far now. 50 yards, maybe less. Close enough that the details begin to matter again. The handle on the door, the small window beside it, the shadow of movement inside. Behind him, the footsteps slow, then stop. The voice does not call out again. Not because it has nothing left to say, but because it knows it will not change anything. Some decisions, once made, do not bend. Lucas reaches the edge of the concrete path, his boots shifting from dirt to solid ground with a subtle change in sound, a firmer echo that carries just a little farther in the open air. He pauses there for half a second, not out of doubt, but to adjust, to make sure the dog is still steady, still breathing, still with him. It is. The rise and fall against his arm is faint, but present. That is enough. He steps forward again, closing the final distance to the door, the early light catching the edges of his jacket, the lines of his face, the quiet determination that has settled there without effort. His free hand reaches out, fingers wrapping around the handle, the metal cool against his skin. For a moment, everything narrows again, just like before. One choice, one action, one step that leads somewhere different than where he was told to go. Lucas does not hesitate. He pushes the door open and carries the dog inside. The door swings open with a low creak that echoes louder than it should in the quiet of the early morning, and the air inside greets him with a different world entirely. Cooler, cleaner, carrying the sharp scent of antiseptic and something faintly sterile that speaks of controlled spaces and measured outcomes. Lucas steps in without hesitation, boots transitioning from concrete to polished floor, the sound soft but distinct, marking his presence in a place that was not expecting him. The overhead lights hum gently, casting a steady glow across rows of cabinets, metal counters, and a single examination table near the center of the room. It is empty. For a moment, everything feels suspended again, like the field outside never followed him in. Just him. And the dog. The animal shifts slightly in his arms as the temperature changes, the cooler air brushing against its fur, drawing a faint shiver that runs along its frame before settling. Lucas adjusts his hold instinctively, bringing it closer to his chest, offering warmth without thinking about it. "Hang on," he murmurs, voice low, steady, the words barely leaving his lips but carrying enough intention to matter. He moves toward the table, each step measured, careful not to jostle the fragile life he is carrying. The room remains quiet, but not empty. There is movement somewhere beyond the doorway at the far end, a faint rustle, the sound of someone turning, noticing something out of place. Lucas reaches the table and pauses, not out of uncertainty, but to prepare, to make sure the next movement is as controlled as the last. His hands shift, one supporting the dog's chest, the other guiding its body as he lowers it gently onto the surface. The metal is cool beneath it, and the contrast draws another soft breath from the animal, a faint sound that lingers just long enough to confirm it is still here, still holding on. Lucas keeps one hand resting lightly along its side, feeling the rhythm beneath, counting without meaning to. One breath, then another. Slower now, but steady. That is what matters. A door opens behind him, sharper than the one he entered through, and footsteps follow. Quick, purposeful, the kind that belong to someone used to responding, not reacting. What is this? A voice asks, not harsh, but immediate, carrying both surprise and concern in equal measure. Lucas does not turn right away. His focus remains on the dog, on the small, quiet signs that it is still with him. Only after a second does he glance over his shoulder, meeting the gaze of a woman in a white coat, her posture straight, her expression alert. She takes in the scene quickly, eyes moving from Lucas to the table, to the dog, and back again. I found him near the perimeter, Lucas says, voice even, controlled, as if he is delivering a report rather than explaining a choice. He is still breathing. The woman steps closer without waiting for more, her attention already shifting to the animal, her hands moving with practiced precision as she reaches for gloves, for tools, for anything that might give her more information. Set him flat, she says, her tone calm but focused, the kind of voice that carries authority through competence rather than rank. Lucas adjusts immediately, easing the dog into a more stable position, his hand lingering just long enough to make sure it does not slip, does not lose the fragile balance it has maintained this far. The woman leans in, her movements efficient, her eyes scanning, assessing, listening in ways that go beyond what can be seen. She does not ask where it came from. She does not question why it is here. Not yet. Right now, there is only one priority. Lucas steps back half a pace, giving her space but not leaving entirely, his presence still anchored near the table, as if stepping away too far might break something that has only just begun to hold. The room fills with quiet motion, drawers opening, instruments placed carefully within reach, the soft rustle of fabric as the woman works. Pulse is faint, she says, more to herself than to him, her voice steady despite the weight of the words. But it is there. Lucas exhales slowly, a breath he did not realize he was holding, the tension in his shoulders easing just a fraction. Faint is enough. Faint means possible. The dog's eyes shift slightly, following the movement above it, not alarmed, not resisting, just aware in that same quiet way it has been since the field. It does not try to move, does not pull away. It simply stays, as if trusting the hands that now surround it, the space it has been brought into. Lucas watches, his gaze steady, his focus unbroken, taking in every small detail, every sign that this was not a mistake, that this moment matters. Behind him, the distant sound of boots echoes faintly in the hallway, a reminder that the world outside has not forgotten, that the choice he made did not end at the door. It followed him in. It will wait for him when this is done. But for now, that does not matter. For now, there is only this room, this table, this fragile line between holding on and letting go. The woman reaches for another instrument, her movements slowing slightly as she studies the dog's face, the set of its eyes, the structure beneath the fur. He is not just a stray, she says quietly, almost to herself, but loud enough for Lucas to hear. Lucas nods once, his gaze never leaving the animal. I know. The word settles between them, simple, certain. Outside, the first full light of morning begins to spread, pressing gently against the windows. But inside, time moves differently now, measured not in minutes, but in breaths. And as long as those breaths continue, so does everything else. The room settles into a rhythm that feels almost sacred, a quiet coordination between urgency and restraint, where every movement is deliberate and nothing is wasted. Lucas stands just off the edge of the table, close enough to see every shift, every subtle sign that the dog is still fighting in its own silent way. The woman works with steady hands, her focus unwavering, her eyes scanning details that most would miss, the faint movement beneath the ribs, the slight flicker in the eyes, the way the body responds, or does not respond, to touch. Stay with me, she murmurs, her voice low, not Commanding, not pleading, just present. Lucas hears it and feels something tighten in his chest, not from fear, but from recognition. He has heard that tone before, in places far from here, in moments where the difference between holding on and letting go came down to something as small as a voice refusing to disappear. The dog's breathing shifts again, uneven but persistent, like it is learning the rhythm all over, each breath a decision rather than a reflex. Lucas watches the rise and fall, counting without meaning to, anchoring himself to something measurable in a moment that feels anything but certain. One breath, then another, slower, but still there. The woman reaches for a small light, guiding it gently toward the dog's eyes, checking response, checking awareness. The amber gaze meets the light, not flinching, not turning away, just absorbing it, as if even that small brightness is something worth holding on to. Good, she says softly, more to the dog than to anyone else. That is good. Lucas exhales again, the sound quiet, controlled, but carrying a weight that has been building since the field. He does not move closer, does not interfere, but his presence remains fixed, steady, like a line drawn that he has no intention of crossing back over. The woman adjusts her position slightly, her movements slowing as she takes in more than just the physical signs, her gaze lingering on the structure, the posture, the way the animal holds itself even in weakness. This one was trained, she says after a moment, her voice thoughtful now, less clinical, more certain. You can see it in the way he stays still, in the way he watches. Lucas nods once, his eyes never leaving the dog. I saw that too. The words are simple, but they carry something deeper, something that has been building quietly since that first sound broke the silence outside. The woman glances at him briefly, as if reassessing not just the animal, but the man who brought it here, then returns her focus to the task in front of her. We are going to try to stabilize him, she says, her tone shifting back to professional clarity. He is holding on, but barely. If we are going to help him, we need to act now. Lucas does not respond with words. He simply nods again, the motion small but firm, the kind that says he understands exactly what that means. The room fills with soft sounds again, the careful placement of tools, the quiet preparation that speaks of experience, of having done this before, of knowing what to do even when the outcome is uncertain. The dog remains still through it all, not resisting, not reacting beyond the faint movements that signal it is still present, still aware in its own quiet way. Its head shifts slightly, just enough to rest more fully against the surface, as if finding a position that requires less effort, less strain. Lucas notices the movement immediately, his attention narrowing even further, every small change amplified in a moment where nothing feels small. He steps half a pace closer without realizing it, his hand lifting slightly before stopping himself, respecting the space, the process, the fragile balance being maintained. The woman works with calm precision, her focus absolute, her hands moving in ways that are both practiced and careful, as if aware that even the smallest misstep could tip the scale in a direction no one wants to face. Come on, she whispers again, her voice softer now, almost like a conversation meant only for the one lying on the table. You are not done yet. The words hang in the air, not dramatic, not heavy, just present, like a quiet truth waiting to be accepted. Lucas feels something shift inside him again, something he does not try to name, something tied to memory and loss and the moments that never quite leave you no matter how much time passes. His gaze drifts for just a second to his right arm, to the ink that has been there long enough to feel like part of him, the image of a shepherd frozen in motion, a reminder of a different time, a different dog, a different outcome. His hand flexes once, then stills, returning his focus to the present, to the life in front of him that has not yet been decided. The dog's breathing steadies slightly, not strong, not even close, but more consistent, less erratic, like something inside it has found a reason to keep going just a little longer. The woman notices it too, her expression shifting almost imperceptibly, a small change that signals progress without declaring it. That is better, she says quietly, her voice carrying a hint of something softer now. Not relief. Not yet. But something close. Lucas lets out another slow breath, the tension in his shoulders easing just enough to feel the difference. He does not allow himself to relax fully. Not here, Not now. But the edge softens, the constant pressure giving way to something that feels like possibility. Outside the room, the bass continues to wake, distant sounds filtering through the walls, footsteps, voices, the rhythm of a place that does not stop for any one moment. But inside, time remains measured in breaths, in small shifts, in quiet signs that life is still present. And as Lucas stands there, watching, waiting, holding that line with everything he has, he realizes something that does not need to be spoken. This was never just about disobeying an order. It was about remembering something he refused to lose. And as long as that memory holds, so will he. Time stretches in quiet increments, marked not by seconds, but by breath, by the subtle rise and fall beneath worn fur that refuses to give in. Lucas remains where he is, just off the edge of the table, his presence steady, unshaken, like a post driven deep into the ground. The woman continues her work with calm precision, her movements fluid now, practiced, as if she has stepped into a rhythm that allows no room for doubt. The dog's breathing evens out further, still fragile, still shallow, but no longer slipping, no longer fading in unpredictable waves. It holds. That alone changes everything. That is it, she murmurs, voice low, steady. Stay right there. The words are not for Lucas. They are not even for herself. They are for the life on the table, the one that has not yet decided to leave. Lucas watches closely, his eyes tracing every small movement, every shift that signals progress, no matter how slight. He has learned to read signs like this in other places, under different conditions, where the margin between staying and going was measured in moments just like these. Outside, the bass has fully awakened now. The distant hum of engines, the cadence of boots on pavement, voices calling out instructions that echo faintly through the walls. The world is moving forward, as it always does, indifferent to the quiet battle unfolding in this room. And then the door opens again. This time, there is no hesitation in the movement. It swings inward with purpose, and the man from the field steps in, his presence filling the space before he even speaks. His uniform is still sharp, his posture unchanged, but something in his expression has shifted. Not softened, just more aware. His eyes move immediately to Lucas, then to the table, taking in the scene with a single, measured glance. "Sergeant Grant," he says, voice controlled, carrying authority without needing to rise. Lucas does not turn fully. He only shifts his head slightly, acknowledging the voice without breaking his focus on the dog. "Sir." The word is simple, respectful, uncomplicated. The man steps further into the room, his boots echoing softly against the floor, each step deliberate. He stops a few feet away, close enough to see clearly, far enough to keep distance between command and consequence. His gaze lingers on the dog for a moment longer this time, noting the small changes, the steadier breathing, the quiet signs that something has shifted since the field. "You disobeyed a direct order," he says finally, the words not loud, but firm enough to settle into the space between them. Lucas nods once. No hesitation. No excuse. "Yes, sir." The admission is immediate. Clean. No attempt to soften it. The man studies him for a moment, as if weighing something that does not fit neatly into regulation. His eyes drift to Lucas's right arm, to the edge of ink visible beneath the rolled sleeve, the outline of the shepherd etched into skin. He does not comment on it. He does not need to. "Step outside," he says after a pause, his tone shifting slightly, less about the room now, more about what comes next. Lucas glances once more at the dog, at the steady rise and fall that holds him in place, then back toward the man. For a brief moment, there is something unspoken there, something that passes between them without words. Lucas steps back from the table, slow, deliberate, as if leaving too quickly might undo what has just begun. He moves toward the door, each step measured, the sound of his boots quieter now, more contained. As he reaches the threshold, he pauses, not turning fully, just enough to look back over his shoulder. The dog remains still, breathing, present. The woman continues her work, focused, unwavering. It is enough. Lucas steps out into the hallway, the door closing softly behind him, sealing the room away from what waits outside. The corridor is brighter now, the morning light filtering in through narrow windows, casting long lines across the floor. The air feels different here, less controlled, carrying the distant sounds of the bass more clearly. The man follows a second later, the door clicking shut with a quiet finality. For a moment, neither of them speaks. They stand in the corridor, the weight of the situation settling into place without needing to be stated. You understand the position you have put yourself in, the man says finally, his voice low, measured. Lucas faces forward, his posture straight, his expression calm. Yes, sir. Again, no hesitation, no defense, just acknowledgement. The man exhales slowly, a subtle shift that might go unnoticed by most, but not by Lucas. It is not frustration. Not entirely. Something else. Something closer to consideration. There are procedures for a reason, he continues, his tone steady. We do not make exceptions based on instinct. Lucas listens, his gaze fixed ahead, but his mind is not on the words alone. It is on the room behind that door, on the steady breathing that he left behind, on the choice that has already been made. Understood, sir, he replies, his voice even, respectful. The man studies him again, longer this time, as if searching for something that is not immediately visible. Then his gaze shifts, just briefly, back toward the closed door. The pause that follows is short, but it carries weight. Is it still alive? He asks, the question quieter now, stripped of command, left with something more human beneath it. Lucas answers without turning. Yes, sir. Another pause. Longer. This time, the kind that allows space for something to change. The man nods once, almost imperceptibly, his eyes lingering on the door for a second longer before returning to Lucas. Then we will see what comes of it, he says, the words measured, not quite approval, not quite dismissal. Just open. Lucas does not respond right away. He lets the words settle, feeling the shift in them, the space they create where before there was none. Yes, sir, he says finally, his voice steady. The corridor falls quiet again, the sounds of the bass continuing around them, life moving forward as it always does. But something has changed. Not in the orders, not in the rules, but in the space between them. And sometimes, that is where everything begins. The hallway holds its breath in a different way now, not tense, not rigid, but suspended, like something unseen has shifted just enough to let a little light through. Lucas remains where he stands, posture steady, eyes forward, but his attention is no longer divided. It is anchored behind the door, in that quiet room where breath still counts more than anything else. The man beside him does not move either, his presence no longer pressing forward, but not retreating. It lingers, thoughtful, as if reconsidering a line that once felt absolute. Seconds pass, then a minute. Time stretches again, thinner this time, less heavy, but no less important. The sounds of the bass continue around them, boots on concrete, distant voices, a truck engine starting somewhere far off, but they feel farther away now, like background noise to something quieter and more immediate. Lucas shifts his weight slightly, not out of discomfort, but to stay grounded, to keep himself in the moment rather than drifting back into memory. His right hand rests loosely at his side, the ink on his forearm catching a thin strip of light from the window, the shepherd frozen mid-stride, unchanged, constant. The man notices it again, just briefly, his eyes tracing the lines before returning to the closed door. You have done this before, he says, not quite a question, not quite a statement, but something in between. Lucas takes a slow breath, the air cool in his lungs. Yes, sir, he replies, voice even, without embellishment. The man nods once, absorbing that, filing it somewhere deeper than protocol. And it worked out, he adds, quieter now, almost as if testing the weight of the idea. Lucas does not answer immediately. His gaze drops for just a second, not to the floor, but inward, to a place where memory and truth meet without needing words. Not always, he says finally, the words simple, honest, carrying more than they reveal. The man studies him again, longer this time, as if that answer matters more than the ones that come easy. Then he looks back at the door, his expression shifting in a way that is subtle but real, the edge of certainty softening into something more human. From inside the room, a faint sound carries through the door, not loud, not urgent, just enough to be heard if you're listening for it. Movement, purpose, life continuing. Lucas hears it immediately, his focus sharpening without effort, his body reacting before his mind needs to. The man hears it too. He does not comment. He He does not move toward the door. He simply stands there, letting the moment settle, letting whatever is happening inside unfold without interruption. If it makes it, he says after a while, his voice lower now, stripped of rank and distance, it will not be by the book. Lucas lets the words sink in, feeling the space they open rather than the restriction they once implied. No, sir, he replies quietly. There is no challenge in it. Just agreement. The man exhales slowly, the sound barely audible, but present. Sometimes, he adds, almost to himself, the book is written after. Lucas glances at him then, just for a moment, not long enough to break the line he holds to the room behind the door, but enough to register the shift. It is small, but it is there. And small shifts are where change begins. Another minute passes, then another. The light in the hallway grows stronger as the sun rises higher, filling the space with a warmer tone, softening the edges of everything it touches. The rigid lines of uniform and rank feel less sharp in it, less absolute. Lucas breathes in again, steady, controlled, but there is something different now, something lighter beneath the discipline, like the tension has found a place to rest without disappearing entirely. The door behind them opens quietly. Both men turn at the same time, not rushed, not abrupt, just drawn by the sound. The woman steps out, her posture still composed, her expression focused. But there is something new there too, something that was not present before. Not relief. Not yet. But something close to it. She looks at Lucas first, then at the man beside him, her gaze steady, direct. He is holding, she says, her voice calm, measured, but carrying a weight that settles deep. Lucas does not move right away. He just absorbs the words, letting them take shape, letting them mean what they mean without rushing past them. Holding. Not saved. Not safe. But not gone. That is enough. The man nods once, acknowledging the update, his eyes lingering on the door for a second longer before returning to the woman. Continue, he says, his tone back to command, but softer now, less rigid. She nods and steps back inside, the door closing gently behind her once more. The hallway falls quiet again, but it is not the same quiet as before. This one carries something different. Possibility. Lucas exhales slowly, the breath leaving him in a way that feels earned, like something he had been holding on to without realizing it. His shoulders ease just a fraction, the line he has been standing on widening enough to stand more comfortably without losing balance. The man beside him watches him for a moment, then shifts his stance slightly, no longer directly opposing, no longer positioning himself as a barrier. Just present. We will review this later, he says after a pause, the words expected, procedural, but lacking the sharpness they might have carried before. Lucas nods once. Yes, sir. The consequence still exists. The choice still matters. But something else exists now too. And as the light continues to fill the hallway, and the quiet work inside the room goes on, it becomes clear that not every decision is measured by what it costs. Some are measured by what they refuse to lose. The hallway grows quieter as the morning settles into itself, the sharp edge of urgency giving way to something slower, more deliberate, like a tide pulling back after breaking against the shore. Lucas remains where he is, but something inside him has shifted, not outwardly visible, not something that would show in a report, but real in the way his shoulders no longer carry the same rigid weight. The door behind him stays closed, yet it no longer feels like a barrier. It feels like a line he has already crossed, one that does not need to be retraced. Minutes pass, maybe more. Time no longer presses the same way. It moves gently now, measured in quiet updates, in the soft rhythm of footsteps passing by, in the faint murmur of voices that do not belong to this moment. The man beside him eventually shifts, turning slightly toward the window at the end of the corridor, his posture easing just enough to suggest that something has been decided, even if it has not been spoken. You should be in formation, he says after a while, his tone neutral, almost routine. Lucas nods once, acknowledging the truth in it, but he does not move. Not yet. The man notices. He does not repeat the order. He simply lets it stand there, between them, like a test that no longer needs to be enforced. Another sound comes from behind the door. Not urgent, not sharp, just different, softer. Lucas hears it immediately. His head turns slightly, his focus returning to that one point in space as if nothing else exists. The man follows the movement with his eyes, then looks back at Lucas, studying him in a way that is no longer about discipline or rank. It is something quieter now. Recognition, perhaps. The door opens again, slower this time, without the earlier urgency. The woman steps out, her hands no longer moving quickly, her posture relaxed in a way that only comes when something uncertain has steadied. She looks at Lucas first, not past him, not through him, at him, and there is no hesitation in what comes next. He is going to make it, she says. The words are simple, clean, no embellishment, but they land with a weight that fills the entire space. Lucas does not react right away, not outwardly. He just stands there, absorbing it, letting it settle into something real, something that cannot be taken back. His breath leaves him slowly, deeper than before, the kind that reaches somewhere far beneath the surface. The man beside him nods once, a small motion, but one that carries acceptance rather than resistance. Good, he says quietly, the words softer than any order he has given that morning. The woman steps aside slightly, leaving the doorway open this time, an unspoken invitation rather than a command. Lucas hesitates for just a fraction of a second, not from doubt, but from the weight of what he is about to see. Then he steps forward, crossing the threshold again, back into the room where everything began to change. The air inside feels different now, warmer somehow. The sharp scent of antiseptic still lingers, but it no longer dominates. It blends with something else, something quieter. The dog lies on the table, still in the same place, but not the same as before. The breathing is steadier now. Not strong, not yet, but consistent in a way that speaks of something returning rather than fading. Its eyes are open, more focused, tracking the movement as Lucas approaches. He stops beside the table, close enough to see the subtle changes, the small signs that life has taken hold again in a way that cannot be easily undone. For a moment, he does not reach out. He just stands there, taking it in, letting the reality of it settle without rushing to claim it. The dog watches him, the amber eyes clearer now, less clouded, more present. There is recognition there, not of a name, not of a history, but of a moment shared, a line crossed together. Lucas lifts his hand slowly, the movement careful, deliberate, as if aware that even now, this connection is something fragile, something that deserves respect. His fingers brush lightly against the fur along the dog's neck, the same place as before, but different now. Warmer, stronger. The dog exhales, a soft, steady breath, and leans into the touch just enough to be felt. Not a demand, not a plea, just trust. Lucas's hand stills there, resting gently, feeling the life beneath it, the steady rhythm that was not there before. He glances briefly at his right arm, at the ink that has followed him through years of decisions, then back to the living animal in front of him. For the first time, the two do not feel like separate things. They feel connected. The woman watches from a short distance, her expression calm, satisfied in a way that does not need to be spoken. She has done her part. The rest belongs to something else now. Outside the room, the base continues its routine, unchanged, moving forward as it always does. But inside, something quiet has been restored. Not just a life, something deeper. Lucas remains there for a moment longer, his hand still resting against the dog, his presence steady, grounded. He does not speak. He does not need to. The silence says enough. And in that silence, something becomes clear in a way that words could never fully capture. Some orders are followed. Some are not. But sometimes, the ones you choose to break are the ones that remind you who you are. The dog shifts slightly, its head turning just enough to rest more fully against his hand, the contact small but certain. Lucas lets it happen, his fingers adjusting without thinking, holding that connection like something that was always meant to be there. No one says anything. No one needs to. Because in that quiet moment, between breath and touch, everything that matters has already been decided.